Well, grace and peace, everyone. About 4 days ago, a video done by a woman named Tameka, I'm not sure of her last name or if she even puts her last name out there. I hope she did not, because she has been getting dragged for the past week or so for doing a video about the validity of something called pretty privilege. And apparently her message wasn't received well, because people are dragging her based on her looks and claiming that she looks like E.T. and yada, yada, yada ad infinitum. So there's a lot of lookism. There's also a lot of ageism, being that she is indeed about my age. Now, I'm about 53 years old, and I'm going to approach the subject with care, because in the era of social media, where everyone wants to put their commentary out there and speak on various subjects freely, in a country where we pride ourselves on having free speech, although we do stress that although we do have free speech, we are not free from the repercussions of the free speech, whatever that may be. Whether it is someone taking issue with your opinions and deciding to call up your supervisor at work and getting you fired, whether or not your commentary may pose issues for where you live, or whether or not people take issue with your commentary and decide to berate you and call you ugly and ascribe different monikers to the way you look. So, what I would say in this ugliness is that when you get to be a certain age, I'm 53 years old, you're not going to see me putting my face out there on social media, because it's a very ugly place. There are some people who are confident enough to do it. There are some people who, could care less about how they look. And there are some people who are privileged to actually be old and ugly and sit themselves on social media and not have a hint of backlash for the way they look. Unfortunately, when it comes to women of color, black women especially, whether or not you are light, red like I am, dark-skinned, or otherwise, whenever you choose to do commentary, your looks are paramount, because everyone decides that they need to attack you based on your looks as opposed to what you say. So, I think when you do subject matter of this sort, and if I'm correct, the way she framed the subject was in the here and now, as if she is still having the problems of pretty privilege and the backlash of pretty privilege bestowed upon her, because she is currently considered attractive and people are talking to her, males are talking to her, and women are hating on her because of it. And you know what? In her age category and whatnot, depending on where she's living and class structure and how she presents in person, that may or may not be true. It may, in fact, be true. Because just because you get older, all of us get older in groups. And just because you're getting older and you're not found attractive by the 20-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 15-year-olds and the 40s and 30s, does not mean that the people in your age category who are all also necrosing, that's what we're doing. We are necrosing in real time. Just because the people in her age group are necrosing along with her, some may be necrosing a little bit more. And they may see her necrosing a little bit less than their own and may actually be jealous because she may or may not be necrosing at the same rate that they are. So it doesn't mean that she's not having this situation go on in her own age group. Hey, you know what? Women in their 70s, I've seen it. I've seen it with my elderly aunts. when they were in their 70s, and they still looked fairly decent. They were still um, well built for their age, still had great skin for their age, and they still had a way of putting themselves together. And yes, they still had to deal with jealousy from women in that age group who may have turned to booger bears and whatnot. And I saw a lot of knockdown drag outs in the church and people threatening to bust other people's kneecaps and everything. I mean, so just because you don't find someone attractive does not mean that they are not necessarily having those issues in real time. However, I think when you're doing those type of videos, they go out to a certain demographic. And that demographic is the teenagers up until, people in their 40s, the younger crowd. And they will have a lot to say about your looks when you're framing it as a real-time type of situation. Even going to the extent of pulling up your old photos or going to your Facebook profile and digging in there and picking up all photos to say, well, how could you speak on this issue if we don't find you attractive back then and there? And she may have been attractive to somebody. So like I said, it's all relative and you have to look at it objectively. However, in the era of social media, like I said, they will drag you. These people are not necessarily in your circle. They are not having your experience, and they definitely will drag you when you do subject matter of the sort. So you have to pretty much be very careful in how you broach the subject. You could use, relatable type of situations that they could say, okay, maybe the thing, use someone like Beyonce. You could very well say that Beyonce benefited from being, an attractive woman who was light-skinned, even though she's in my color range. But it seems as if we change the goalposts for light skin every generation. When I was growing up, people who were golden brown, 4W, if you will, were considered light-skinned. And now all of a sudden they want to throw us in the dark skin category. So as far as Beyonce is concerned, I would say that she probably did benefit from pretty privilege because she was attractive, even though she does not have the greatest voice. And she was placed ahead of a lot of people, a lot of better singers like Kelly Price and other people who could sing her under the floorboards because she was considered attractive. So you can use real-time examples like that. But I think when you do situations and you do subject matter about things like that, you really can't speak from an objective point of view and use yourself as the subject. Because when you're using yourself as the subject, you are just asking for problems and you are just asking to be dragged. Now, I think most of us are aware of our aging process. We are aware of how we look. We are aware at a certain age that we're no longer considered the cat's meow or considered attractive or considered something that someone or young people would find attractive. In fact, in many situations, many of us may have been considered attractive enough to model and do different things, runway modeling and whatever else. But at a certain point, you just are considered weird looking by the younger generation. They have no frame of reference for your looks. And at that point, you need to cross over into elegance and speak from a position of wisdom. I think that is the only way you could bring out that subject matter. Now, another thing that I think is very important when you're doing subjects like this, and I think this may have been intentional on her part, because I'm pretty sure that she's well aware of how she looks. I guess she went through a dramatic weight gain, weight loss journey, which has left her with the skin, the excess skin that can look quite wrinkly. And it can make you look a lot older. So whereas I think she may be around my age because I've always been thin, and she may actually be a lot younger. Who knows? Who knows? But I think many of us are well aware and self-aware of how we look. And there's no way possible that she could not know that she looks a lot older, to the point that if she's going to do some kind of subject on pretty privilege, that she may need to use a filter or two, she may need to use proper lighting, and she may need to sit down or have a certain background so that she doesn't get dragged. In many ways, I think that may have been intentional. Because you cannot tell me that in doing this type of video and putting yourself out there in the most vulnerable state that you ever could put yourself out there, that you weren't expecting to go viral, and you weren't expecting to have your face posted all over social media with all kinds of ugly negative comments underneath. And if it was intentional, she's done a good job, because there's money in clicks, and there's visibility in clicks, and there's visibility in having your face plastered all over the place. Now, what she could do is take that viral moment, seize the opportunity, cultivate some kind of a character and some type of marketability around this virality, and now keep herself out there somehow, some way. So if you ask me, I think Tameka has had her viral moment intentionally. I think she did it intentionally, and she probably has millions of views now. Hopefully she does, on that one video, and maybe she can cultivate it and springboard off of it. Why not? I don't think it's the time to start removing videos. She has done that, apparently, and I don't think she should do it. I think she should just keep going and seize the moment. Anyway, it's starting to rain, and I'm enjoying a wonderful moment at home here with the windows down. You can probably hear the rain pitter-pattering on the house and on the windows. I'm going to sign out. I'm not going to bore you any longer, but grace and peace to you. And if you have a situation like Tameka, exercise care and caution. And if it was something that you didn't intentionally, seize the moment. Ciao, ciao, and have a great day.